So hi, this is Oliver from Olidia Care. I want to introduce you to some new scheduling features in Olidia Care EMR system. So the first part is the request time off. So we have a nurse, as you can see, his name is Kofi. He has a family emergency or anything, and he would love to request some time off. So when he logs in, he hasn't yet chosen a patient, just logging into his account. He goes to the right, and there's what we call request time off. He clicks here, and then he adds time off. When he clicks on the time off, the system will ask a few questions. He will put um, family leave request, and then he start date for the request. So I will choose maybe this Tuesday here, and then he picks the end date for the request. um, a shift start time uh, because the request may be for until a certain from the start of a particular shift and after the last end time shift, the person will be available to work or to be scheduled. So he puts it at um, 11 p.m. or here, and then he put maybe a reason um, uh, emergency. Or you can write notes if you want to. Automatically, the request is considered pending after submission. So it could be approved, but it could also be denied for some reason. The manager can do that, the staffing manager or care manager. So um, the submission, the request is submitted. You can see that all the requests are here. There is a request that was denied before, but this one submitted. So what happened is that the manager receives an email, and we can have it here automatically. We can see that there is Kofi. Uh, this email that we received that says that Kofi has requested a time off um, for family emergency and is considered pending. So what happens is that when the manager, the HR manager, the care manager sees the request, he can go to the system. On the right side, he can see the time off, the request time offs here, and then he can see the time off list. That means the list of all those who have requested time off. We can see that on those requests, there is a time off from Kofi, the one that he just submitted, and then the manager can click on it to edit the request, and then he can approve and write notes if needed, and and then the request is then approved. When the request is approved, um, the staffing managers will not be able to schedule the patient, the nurse for the period that is requested. So, so let's see how it works. So when you we go to the schedule, and I know that Kofi Yeboah works for one client, but when he requests a time off, he will not be scheduled for any of his clients in the company for the time that is being requested and approved. So he works for a patient called Carlos Maldini, who is actually a fake patient. So and then you can see the 24 that he requested. Um, can move to that date. So he requested first this part here, but he has a request for the 24th. And you can see that the period from the 24th to the 25th that is requested, it consider is gray. And you can see here that staffing managers can schedule somebody in any other place, but here he can be scheduled. And any shift that he had during this period will disappear from the schedule and disappear from the timesheet until he comes back, and then he can see the schedule. And then also naturally, when the nurse goes to see his schedule while he's on leave, he can see that he's not scheduled for that period of time. Okay, so that is it for the request for a leave. There's another feature which is very powerful, which is the um, the pickup of open shift. So let's go again to our nurse, uh, Kofi Yeboah, and then the Kofi goes back to um, his client. Now he chooses Carlos Maldini. That is his client. Only has Carlos Maldini. And then when he comes here, he looks at the schedule. Like everybody, when you choose your client, you can check the schedule. So he used the case schedule here, and he noticed a few things. Um, he noticed that there are two open shift. This open shift and then this open shift here. Um, there are shifts that are open, and then for now we have a new feature where anybody can pick an open shift. So Kofi thinks that way he can pick this particular shift here, and then he click here, and then he has to claim the shift. And I also want to say that that request has to be approved. So and then he claimed the shift, and he let uh, he get a notification that the staffing manager has approved the request. And then when he claimed the shift, the system is closed, but the shift is considered, as you can see, purple because he already made a request and nobody else can request that same shift. That is why it turned purple. But if the request is denied, the shift will turn back blue and somebody else can take it. Another issue with the shift request is that if the request is causing the nurse to go on overtime, the request also will not be approved, and that is another part there. So what the manager does is that the first thing is that he gets a notification that the a shift was requested, and then you can see that notification here that below there's a shift claim request by Kofi Yeboah, and then the system say, can you please approve, and automatically request comes from Kofi, and the manager gets it. So when the manager gets it, the manager goes on a scheduling. That is here, but here's what happened. Uh, the when the manager had to go to the date where the request is made as it is on the email. So and then when it comes to the date, you can see that that shift here that was requested come in a different color. Remember, it was requested by Kofi, but it's still an open shift. The staffing managers just go, hey, when he does the schedule, you see something purple and you see those color, which is different. That means there's a request. Somebody wants the shift. So he has to click here. When he click here, he can approve and deny. And you see what happened when he click approve, the shift has moved. The shift has moved from the open shift down to Kofi Yeboah's shift. And that is how the request work. So instead of having the staffer calls you, always check the schedule to see to see if there is an open shift that is put on a schedule by the staffing manager, and you can pick it. And instead of naturally the managers, the staffing manager calling you, um, you can proactively make requests. There are now a few other issues that I will just talked a little bit that we had in the past. So I will go back to Kofi and Carlos Maldini. And then when we come here, we add a few features here on the Keynote. So under particularly for Kofi, for the case here, we added a communication book, which which is now electronic, and that will help um, uh, with the with the um, with the accuracy of our communication. We usually had the paper communication book, but unfortunately for that, um, sometimes parents ripped up the pages, and sometimes nurses also do that. And some of them were lost, some of them were written over, some of them the kids in the home write on it, and then this is um, a charting documentation, which is legal documentation. So we decided that by going electronic, we will keep it more accurate. So as you can see, you just put a communication title here on the time of communication, and then okay, you can put details here, but the details have some limitation. So that means you put few a minimum requirement. If you put fewer words that you're supposed to, it will require you to put a certain number of characters there. So, and that is a little bit new, but that is something that um, we're gonna use. So, I also want to add that we have a few more chatting requirements when the manager goes to the care note, or the manager, that means the nurse, goes to the care note. We have also the client orientation checklist, which is a requirement for new nurses for any new cases. So if you do not submit that form, um, you will not be paid for any shift in a new case, and it's also a state requirement. We have a clinical note, which are now a minimum requirement for chatting in the detailed part of the form. It is important because we noticed that for a complex shift, we have caregivers who only wrote a few lines for a full 12-hour shift, and those notes are required very, very frequently by hospital and their investigators whenever needed. So, and then we also have the emergency check, which will be a requirement. Um, you can see that he has been submitted quite a bit, but the emergency check is very important. Um, every time you go to work, you have to do some check to make sure that what is needed to maintain a complex care patient is available. Check and review every time and every shift. So you got to check if do a safety check, do oxygen tank and backup ventilators is there available for those who have that, and thread ties and everything. It's just an emergency check for a complex care patient. So, and then there is a change of chief protocol, which is also uh, a form, which is also important. Um, when you open the forms, it is a little bit a way to facilitate the reporting and transition of shift and make sure that the outgoing nurse has completed all what is needed. And by taking over the shift, the incoming nurse assume and confirm that everything has been done. It goes from narcotics review to medication to all the cleaning duties and the last diaper change, the last BHIM time, and then the timesheet is complete and all of that, and then it's submitted. So, and then the final part, as we have, is the report. As you can see, there's an incident report, And also, naturally, also, this patient doesn't have that. There's also a behavioral lag. The incident report is very important. It has to be any incident that happens. It may be a minor incident. We have to describe what it is, person involved, and everything. Those incidents, and mostly the behavioral for patient behavior, are very important because uh, mm, um, we are constantly investigated because we provide complex care. Somebody can get hurt, hospitalized, and the family member may think, well, the nurse didn't do a good job. So we have constant investigation from any request from any place. So, and most of the time, the nurses are investigated. And a lot of the time, they are patients with behavior who investigate. Sometimes who request, who complain. They receive a complaint form when they start working with us, and they with phone numbers, and they call the state all the time. So we need to protect ourselves in terms of nursing because the documentation is a power. Um, it's everything. So always, even if it's a minor issue, always put it in as an incident because the multiplication of minor issues becomes big. It's like multiple misdemeanors become a felony, and it also help establish a trend and a behavior pattern that will be helpful in investigating in investigation. So always put any incidents and any issue. Good documentation is important, and that is why we require you to put more information in it. That is why we have this minimum characters amount request. So anyway, that was the end of this video. And if you have any more questions or anything, we will be able to assist you. Thank you.